Newsfirst Newsline with Faraz Shaukat Ali.
Top of the morning to you. This is Newsline, live from the Newsfirst studios in Dawson Street in Colombo. And joining me this morning is the joint convener of the People's Intellectual Assembly, Mr. Krishmal Wanasuriya, attorney at law as well. Very good morning to you, Mr. Wanasuriya.
Top of the morning to you, Faraz.
And how are you today?
Well, all right. Yeah.
And
batting on day by day.
we see that this government is going from one scandal to another. Anyway, certainly matters that cause a lot of consternation. I'm talking coal, the stuff that goes into the Norwich power plant. The Supreme Court made a order, is it that you call it? It gave Lanka Coal Company. They said that it may cancel the tender and call for a new one, provided that they give the existing people adequate notice. We understand that Lanka Coal have done just that. They've given this current supplier notice of their intention to drop it. But in the meantime, we've got the Ministry Secretary who's writing to the Cabinet asking them to make a decision and reminding them that if they do, they may face a big bill for compensation. Now, how right is that? Why should the Ministry Secretary get involved when the Supreme Court has given the Lanka Coal Company, the people responsible for importing the coal, they've given them a way out. They said you may cancel.
Yeah, well, therein lies the question, doesn't it, Faraz? The question, I think, before we go to what you say the Secretary has now appraised the Cabinet of Ministers, I'm not aware of exactly what the contents are of that. So I'll take it at what you say. But before we come to that, the Supreme Court judgment, if you look at it, you need to carefully read it. Initially, even when I heard things that were commented on it without reading the judgment, I also felt that it was a fairly strong judgment, which sort of compelled adherence, which forced adherence. But having had the opportunity to have a closer look at it, I feel that although their lordships of the Supreme Court have found several things wrong in the procedure, and at one place I think the lordship said it shocked the conscience of court.
That's right.
To see how the procedure had been violated. One was to do with that after the bids were open, and during the tender consideration, that there have been communications which is a violation of the government procurement guidelines itself.
Yeah.
So now these faults have been cited by the Lordship of the Supreme Court. However, based upon a preliminary objection raised by the state, their Lordships have dismissed the case. You see, that judgment, that judgment is not in favour of the petitioner. The petitioner's case has been dismissed.
Yeah.
And at the end, the Lordship say that when we found these irregularities, because of those irregularities, they may move to set aside the award and call for fresh tenders. Now, that does not require direct compulsion or compulsory adherence to.
That's right. They're giving them an option.
Yeah. So now there is a discretion. With all being about as a person who supported good governance and the rule of law. And that we must be seen to be having a fair, transparent, fair play.
Yeah.
I would like it if they considered the procedural errors at least, so that things were done properly and thought of calling for fresh tenders. But it is not a direct violation of that court order if they don't do it. So it's actually a question of good governance.
Yeah.
Now that is where we need to. Now the Cabinet of Ministers under the Constitution is charged with the direction and control of the state.
Yeah.
The state has directive principles of state policy in Article 27 of the Constitution, and then that goes on to say how a government should be conducted in Sri Lanka. Now, when that is clearly set out, of course, part of these principles are that you must have accountability, you must have fair play, everyone must be allowed to play on equal footing and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So now I don't see anything wrong in the cabinet of ministers being asked to look at it. They are the ones who are controlled with the policy framework of the government. They make policy for that people's executive judicial power. People's executive power, our sovereign executive power, has been given to the cabinet of His Excellency the President, the Prime Minister and a cabinet of ministers to control and direct that state for that time period in public trust for us.
Yeah.
So as long as they do it in public trust with our ultimate benefit at heart, I don't see a big problem in the cabinet of ministers looking at it again. But I do not know whether as you say, the secretary who I believe was involved in those procedural errors in the first place, that's the allegation, that the secretary who has been found faulted for having violated a lot of procedures, whether he should be taking upon himself to guide the cabinet in that way. Now I go on the statement that you made.
That's right. Now we're getting a call from a message from a viewer. He's asking, if the procedure is flawed, how can the tender be valid?
If the procedure is flawed, how can the tender be valid? Is a question with the utmost respect to the Lordship of the Supreme Court that should have been determined by court.
Right.
Now,
but it does say that it's flawed.
The court says yes. So now this is a critique of the judgment. One must remember that that when we criticize the judgment, we have all the right to criticize the judgment, but we should not disrespect the court.
Right.
So this is in no way meant as a disrespect to the court of law. But in the judgment, if their lordships had really found fault with the entire process, as their lordships say, the judgment does not conclude by holding in favour of the petitioner. You follow?
Yeah.
It may be on that preliminary objection, because I think there was a preliminary objection raised with regard to jurisdiction. That the company that had petitioned did not have the locus, what we call locus standi, or the standing to sue. And I believe that the lordships have held with it. If I remember the judgment correctly, I stand to be corrected on that. But so the judgment is not in favour of the petitioner in that sense. The case has been dismissed. So as to if the procedure is flawed, how can the tender be valid is indeed a question of law, and I believe that someone should actually get a ruling on that, because perhaps now if this petitioner did not have the right to go to court, certainly there may be another petitioner who has the right to go to court. There may be another petitioner affected, or a member of the public who is affected, who may have the right to go to court and ask, okay, well, that petitioner's case was dismissed because he didn't have the right to sue. He was a foreign company or whatever. But I am a petitioner, I am a Sri Lankan citizen, and your lordship say that this entire process is flawed. So then how can this tender be valid? Now that's a valid question. That's a valid question that you can ask both organs of government, the judicial arm of government, which is your sovereign judicial power, as well as the executive arm of government, which exercises your executive sovereign power.
So in this whole thing, and standing from the outside sort of looking in, what I can gather is that one more time, yet again, government is acting with very little actual regard for the people's monies, because this is costing money. They've not only to what you just referred to, where that company has been in communication with with the awarding committee. And now the other thing that they did is that midstream they changed the spec in simple terms, they changed the size of the core. Now last night on Face the Nation, we posed the question whether the dust had increased because of the size of the core. Now it'd be interesting to find out, of course, what the board of Lanka Coal Company are doing about this. Are they going to cancel it because the Supreme Court says may, or indeed are they going to seek clarification from the Supreme Court on that word may? What would you advise?
I don't know whether I'm preempting myself here, or things that I should perhaps not professionally discover in a very wide sense. In a very wide sense, I believe that, I mean, the lordships have said that you may proceed to cancel the tender. That clearly gives the impression that the coal company can move to do so if they so desire.
Yeah.
Subject to, of course, complying with whatever other directions the lordships are given, that they're giving notice to the parties affected and that sort of thing. I mean, those are laws of natural justice, so that I'm sure they will do. But the question lies, I don't think that's a clarification that I as a citizen would like to see. The clarification that I would like to see is whether this whole procedural errors that we referred to earlier, the flaws in the tender process, that can actually invalidate the tender. You see, because that petition was dismissed on a technical objection, on a preliminary objection.
Yeah.
But clearly the procedural errors that the lordships have seen that shock the conscience of that court still remain.
So they said they've dismissed it, but subject to those two things.
Yes, so that's a question. That's a question that the coal company must advise themselves on how to proceed legally.
Right. We're trying to get the telecoms right and speak to Mr. Maitri Gunaratne, the chairman of Lanka Coal Company. The control room is now trying to patch him in. It's interesting in the meantime.
Can I just add to that for us and say that this is why I believe, particularly on questions like this, that the people, that the citizens of this country, the ultimate repositories of this country's sovereign power, the Republic's sovereign power, must...
Good morning to you, Mr. Maitri Gunaratne. Are you with us?
Yes, Faraz.
Very good morning to you.
Morning to you,
Mr. Gunaratne, as the chairman of Lanka Coal Company, can you confirm as to what you have done? A, have you decided to cancel this tender? Have you given the supplier adequate notice? And are you going to seek a clarification from the Supreme Court?
Yeah, Faraz, on the 8th of July, I have written to the supplier asking them not to get ready with the next season, that is to deliver the next 1 million tons. That letter has been sent and I have had no reply from them to date. The other thing is, for us, now we have, our board has decided to go to the Supreme Court and get a clarification. Although my opinion is different, I think learned Chief Justice has given a very specific direction in his order. In the last paragraph, he has very clearly stated, I consider it appropriate to make the following directions, and he has given 2 directions. And in that, he has given a lot of discretion to Lanka Coal Company, the third respondent, in a manner where he has said that we may decide to go ahead with terminate the contract. That is because he does not want to. I feel the opinion of the court is they don't want to be responsible if there's a blackout in this, with regard to shortage of coal. They don't want to be held responsible. So therefore, he has given us a discretion to exercise it, and at a convenient time to stop the contract, and he has asked us to go for a fresh contract, fresh tender. So that we are in a process of doing, for us.
Thank you for that clarification. Can I also ask you, have you considered that there is a possibility that the company may seek compensation?
Well, the company, if they are going to seek compensation, they will have to seek the compensation from the people who made the wrong decision, not from the government. Because the Supreme Court has very clearly, in its decision, in its judgment, said that the SCAP has acted ultra vires the powers of the SCAP. So therefore, if any kind of compensation is going to be made, it will have to be made to the members who took this decision.
But Maitri, may I just
please do.
Maitri, hi, good morning.
Morning.
We may face that problem. No, Maitri, if the contract has been entered to with Lanka Coal, whatever the reasons that you say, since the Supreme Court has not really dismissed, they've dismissed the application. So, as to how far we can get by, of course, the Supreme Court has made some scathing remarks and found fault with the SCAP for violating the procedure,
Yeah.
whether that alone will satisfy if there's a contractual agreement for any breach that you must pay compensation, a liquidated damage or whatever, whether those findings by the Supreme Court itself will exonerate the company for not paying them will be a question. No, Maitri?
No, Krishma, sorry to disagree with you.
Yeah.
But in the judgment, there is a letter which I have sent to the Secretary to the Ministry, saying that, telling him, cautioning him not to take this course of action. And the Supreme Court, having quoted my letter fully, has said, if at all, the SCAP should have acted according to this letter. So therefore, according to that letter, no bidder shall contact the procuring authority.
No, correct.
And
That
so
is that. They have
this
clearly
law
violated
does
the
not
tender
have a leg
procedure.
to
That's
stand
correct.
on. They don't have a leg to stand on with regard to compensation,
Yeah.
because they are the people who have violated the procedure in this country.
Correct. And also, Maitri, I think what's in your favor is actually that limb B of the directions that you first one, of course, is you may move to terminate, no, but the second
Yes.
one is it's clear, no, it doesn't even may or shall. It's a call for fresh bids.
But call for fresh bids according to law.
Yeah, in terms of the
That-
law.
that-
So the
and
law
that has
is
been
a tender
completely-
procedure.
Krishmal, that has been the responsibility has been given to Lanka Coal Company.
That's right.
And we are supposed to do it according to law.
Yeah.
So as long as we are doing a legal operation,
Yeah.
right? We can do whatever we want as long as it is legal.
Whatever you want within the four corners of the law, Maitri.
Four corners of the law.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Mr.
Thank you,
Gunratna,
Bharat.
for joining Newsline this morning by telephone. We hope that next time you'll actually turn up here, because we've got space for you here. We've got a double couch. But thank you very much for your time this morning, and you have a great day. On that note, we'll take a short break and come right back and join us with Krishmal Varnasurya. Don't go away. After all, this is Newsline.
News First.
Welcome back to Newsline, and my guest this morning is Mr. Krishmal Varnasurya. Krishmal, we've heard what the chairman of Lanka Coal has to say. We've heard that the secretary has written to the cabinet, almost trying to instill a sort of fear psychosis upon the cabinet, reminding them of this vast compensation that may come. But anyway, those are matters for court to decide. And now that we have rather a robust and independent judiciary, hopefully things will happen. But what can the people do? What sort of action can the people take?
Yeah, as we were trying to discuss, for us, I think this is why it's important for the Republic to have a educated response to all that, not just coal. Because unfortunately, although we say that our literacy rate is almost at 100%, 98 or 99%, I beg to differ whether our political intellect or whether the way we make decisions politically is even anywhere close to 50%.
Yeah.
Because if you think now these sort of issues, whether it's coal, whether it's a central bank bond issue, or whether it's any other issue, our people need to have an educated response when they go to the polls on the next occasion.
Yeah.
You follow? And thereby it is, and I don't think these very corrupt politicians, I believe, who are mostly corrupt, will never do anything to change this vicious cycle. You see, the more they have people voting for their red, yellow or blue caps that they wear,
Or
the
green.
more or green. I'm sorry, green, blue. What are the colors? Green, blue, yellow, red, whatever.
Yes.
Yeah. Those are the colors.
Don't forget the green.
Okay, green.
Because you get told off.
All right. Okay, green, blue, red, yellow caps that they wear. Or the more they have people voting for the roofing sheet or the television set or the bicycle that comes close,
Or the rice from the sky.
or the rice from the sky that comes upon close to the election, we will never be able to have an educated response to issues like this when we go to the poll the next time. We have, I think, almost forgotten that sovereign power in this country is ours. The Republic's sovereign power, Article 3 says, lies with the citizen. We only give it in public trust to these institutions, whether it's executive arm, whether it's a legislative arm, or the judicial arm to govern us in public trust for our benefit. But I think we've almost lost it. That is why the People's Intellectual Assembly was convened. You would be funnily by mostly persons who during the January 8th revolution, the People's Silent Revolution, got on the road to change that regime. We thought that watching this was getting way out of control. We had to do something because one, the people were asking us. I say, you all got out on the streets and told us to change the regime. We've done it, but we've seen faces change, but the same system continue.
Indeed.
The same corruption continue.
Yeah.
If not as it was, much more. So what are you saying now? So we thought that we must give an educated response to the people on every issue, which is why we formed the People's Intellectual Assembly under the auspices of the most venerable Theros of the temple, the bishops of the church, the other religious dignitaries, with a convening body and a set of members who most of whom took part in leading the people in that people's revolution on the 8th of January. Because we want to make sure that the government that we put in place go along the principles that we promised the people, which is democracy, rule of law, good governance, etc.
Do you feel...
I invite all right-thinking people in the country, right-thinking people in the country to join the People's Intellectual Assembly, because it's an assembly. It's something, in Sinhalese it's mandapaya. Godavadinna puluang mandapayak. I invite everyone who's equally convinced that we have a positive duty towards benefit of this country, towards the future of this country, to leave a better country for our future generations, to come on board the assembly. And our number is 070-2246-895. 070-2246-895 if you wish to contact us.
Good. But how much do you think the government is listening to you?
You will be surprised, within the first week of our formation, just after the first press conference that we held, I don't want to mention names, but both sides, the government and the opposition, including the so-called joint opposition, contacted us, both obviously for its own interests, own political interests, but we've had a very good response by both parties congratulating us for forming it. So when the government congratulates us, and when the opposition congratulates us, we know that we made several steps ahead in the first week. And also remember the shadow cabinet people are talking about now.
Why was that so much of a joke?
At our first press conference, for us, this is the effect that the People's Intellectual Assembly or people's intellect can have on the politicians. At our first press conference, we asked the question, where is the opposition in this country? Where is the shadow cabinet? Where is the shadow minister looking after foreign affairs? Where is the shadow minister looking after international affairs? Where is the shadow minister looking after financial affairs? Where this is part and parcel of a Westminster system. If you have a strong government, you must have equally strong opposition. Almost breathing down the neck, we say. Democracies, opposition must breathe down the neck of a government. So just to say, if you fall, I can make government tomorrow. Now, 1 week after we made that statement, the joint opposition comes out with the shadow cabinet, and the government criticizes shadow cabinet. Thus, we have got the people what they wanted.
Wonderful.
You see,
actually, that's very important.
Yes.
But I have a regular viewer. I've decided to call him Captain Skeptic. Because Captain Skeptic is sending me a message this morning to say that utopia is a pipe dream. Do you think we'll reach this good governance scale where there is actually no corruption, where the government purchases and contracts and so on are free of speculation that it has that it costs too much because there was some underhand activities going on?
100% zero corruption or 100% good governance or 100% rule of law. I agree with that gentleman. It may be a utopian dream that no government on earth, whether it's Sri Lanka or the most democratic government on earth, will ever achieve. But our idea should be to get at higher rates, higher levels. You see, corruption can never be 100% eradicated, but it can be managed. There can be methods put in place to manage corruption, methods put in place to get good governance, like the democratic systems that we see here. You follow? You can't have 100% eradication of corruption. You can't have 100% rule of law. That's obviously utopian. but we can certainly get far beyond where we are now.
Yeah.
And that is what we must aspire to do, as famous American president said, as His Excellency the President. Once again, we must congratulate what the government does well. Now, for us, yesterday, they had that opening of the Kaluganga project.
Yeah.
We must not be ashamed or shy away from saying good when it's good.
Indeed.
We congratulate His Excellency the President for persevering, as he said from long time ago, through several governments, and finally seeing that come to light yesterday. And we congratulate Your Excellency on doing that, and we hope you will persevere even to bring the other promises that you assured the people on the 8th of January, for which we got on the road for normal ordinary citizens in this country.
And I think also, Krishmal, that the people of the country don't, like you say, they must recognize this. And why don't you actually write to your leaders whenever they do something actually outstandingly good? Send them an email, at least an email, and say, you know, you're doing a great job. Because that's a double-edged sword. They know that you're watching, and they know that you're on the ball, and then if they do the opposite, you'll be in touch with them again. So I think, you know, perhaps they ought to. The address
a more active citizen. A more active citizen is what we need.
That's right. And, you know, it's almost everyone has the World Wide Web now, haven't they? So if you look up President's House, Prime Minister's Office, you'll find them. I think all credit should go to President Sirisena on this matter.
For persevering with
Indeed.
it for so many regimes.
Indeed.
Yes.
So does this all indicate, Krishmal, as we're coming to the end of our half an hour, do you think that there is hope?
Well, as I was just about to say, as His Excellency the President said, we must take what is good from the West that we can. As a famous American president, I don't want to mention names, said, if we can, when on the day we die, on our deathbed for us, if we can assure ourselves, be satisfied, that we have tried to keep this country a little bit better than we found it at birth. We have tried. We may have failed everything we do, but at least if all of us try to keep it a little bit better than we found it when we were born, when we die, I think we have done our duty as citizens. So let's try and do that, and I'm sure our future generations for us won't have to come on Newsline in the morning and ask for citizen empowerment, that they will actually empower themselves.
The Prime Minister said that he's not going home until Sri Lanka is a developed nation. On a similar line, this channel isn't going anywhere until we find that the people's wishes are met, and that there is an equitable playing field and an equitable lifestyle for everyone, where all our citizens are safe. Then that's what we shall do. And
but I'm afraid, I think that's, with all due respect to the Honourable Prime Minister, I don't think that that's a decision that he can make. That's a decision the people will make as to when a government goes home.
Indeed,
yeah,
that's
because
true.
The people hold the absolute sovereign power in the country.
Absolutely.
And no one must forget that.
No one must forget that. Public perception and public opinion plays a key and wonderful role in governance.
As we showed on the 8th of January.
Absolutely. Krishmal Wanasuriya, thank you very much for being on Newsline. We look forward to welcoming you on any of our network channels another time. Perhaps you ought to get on Pathikada, which is hosted by the former diplomat Bandula Jayasekara.
Thank you, Faraz. Thanks for having me. Thank you. Thank you for having me. We'll see you again.
And on that
soon.
note, thank you for watching Newsline. If you're abroad, as you know, you can log in on www.tv1.lk, and you can watch us live, whether you're in London, New York, or Melbourne, Sydney, Tibet even. But you might have a problem in Tibet. In the meantime, thank you for watching Newsline. Take care, have a great day, and God bless.